was attracting my attention. I said we should go and see why it is called Jolapuram. So when we reached Jolapuram, this ash was very much there, and we continued our work both in Bilasargam cave excavation as well as at Jolapuram. And Jolapuram ash was already 74,000 year age. But what was interesting for us, exciting was we found stone tools below the ash, and those stone tools are definitely older than the volcanic ash. So for the first time, the second phase of chronometric revolution in India was dating the middle Paleolithic to 80,000 years ago. And then in the Bilasargam caves, when we re-excavated, we found many more fossils of animals, and then very close observation and shifting of particle by particle. What we found was the volcanic ash glass, individual glass shards buried in the cave floor. That was more exciting. We could not date the faunal material because there's a continuity. There is no extinctions that we see in the animal fauna. But this presence of volcanic glass shard in the cave floor sediment established the chronology of that. Now I said, in addition to dating the ash glass, we also have OSL dating, optically stimulated luminescence. It has a time depth up to several lakhs of years. So we could do that, what we call OSL sampling and get the dates and so on. So when we built up the story, there were 3 or 4 caves because we could not go to the bottom of each of the cave floor. So we built a composite stratigraphy from cave 1 to 2 to 3. So built up a study, and then it revealed a history of animal life in that area, continuing of nearly 260,000 years. So without any discontinuity in the animal fauna. And then most interesting thing was some of the bones which were previously identified wrongly were subject to restudy, and then we found that it is what you called an old world monkey called Therapithecus gelida. It is extinct in India, but now lives in Ethiopian highlands. So that was another exciting thing. So we have these migrations taking place. And then we began to find the presence of ostrich eggshells in Bellary area. And these can be dated. Now, as I said, Neolithic goes back only to 5,000 years. In the neighborhood, we have another painted rock shelter where ostrich eggshell was found. Only 2 weeks ago, we got a date of 20,000 for the ostrich eggshell. So the antiquity is going back, in different contexts, revisiting, redating the material, preserving that material was important. So when we were, the collection of my museum, and it was being restudied for another PhD thesis, these what we call ostrich eggshells were identified. We send them to lab. AMS date gives 20,000 years age. So simultaneously, we discovered one more cave near Bellary in Sandur area, which I shared with you recently. And that is also likely to be as old as 20 to 30,000. So we have collected OSL samples. Just 2 weeks ago, we were there and sent it to Physical Research Laboratory for dating and so on. So Bilasargam actually transformed our understanding of the animal life and habitability and the nature of ecosystem, like grassland ecosystems, fluctuating between what you call parkland vegetation and then the grassland vegetation and things like that. So these are some environmental inputs that we are getting indirectly from the study of these multiple data sets from our excavations and so on. And the museum has preserved them very carefully. Like a library, you go and ask, I want to see a bead, stone bead, which was manufactured by our ancestors 15,000 years ago. I can, in 5 minutes, I give you. So while we were excavating Jolapuram, one of the painted rock shelters was also excavated. And for the first time, we dated microliths, tiny tools, to 40,000 years ago. Otherwise, they were thought to be only 4,000 to 8,000 years. So that also pushed back the antiquity of the microliths. So African archaeologists, especially Westerners who are working in Africa, they argue that our Homo sapien ancestors left Africa after they invented microlithic tool technology. But we began to argue, no, they left Africa much earlier than the invention of microlithic tools and so on. So this argument is going on. The global debates, India has an important place now. And thanks to the projects, not only me and my collaborators undertook either at Sangankallu or Bilasargam or Jolapuram. And we have made a big way, in terms of our appearance on the global scene, especially when synthesis of global prehistory is done. That's sort of a satisfying thing for us. Yeah.
You have been a part of another international investigation for tracking human migrations in prehistory from Africa to Australia, known as Out of Africa into South Asia. And you have been the leader for South Asia project. So how important is this study?
Yes. Geographically, the subcontinent occupies a central place along the migration route of modern humans, or simply humans, out of Africa to reach Australia. This was the terminal point of the modern Homo sapiens migration out of Africa and beyond to reach the Americas, but that route was a northerly route. So the most often repeated dispersal route out of Africa of modern humans was a southern dispersal route. The northern dispersal route carried the Homo sapiens into northern Asia, Eastern Asia, beyond Siberia, into Beringia, crossover Beringia, reach Alaska, and then the northern American continent and so on. By about 13,000 years ago, that route was completed and Americas were colonized. Whereas the southern dispersal route, argued for expansion along the coastal routes of Africa, Arabia, and peninsular India and beyond, and reach Australia by about 50,000 years ago. And then they suggested that in about 10,000 years ago, the movement of Homo sapiens out of Africa to Australia took place in about 10,000 years. And that they considered it as a rapid dispersal. So this arc of migration refers to expansion of Homo sapiens via northerly route to colonize the Americas. And that INCWA had these commissions, several commissions. One among these commissions was the Great Arc of Human Migrations, and it was led by an American paleoanthropologist. And then they had representations from different parts along the dispersal routes, so-called dispersal routes. So India happens to be geographically at crossroads. So people could move northwards and also southwards and go beyond and so on. So this was the theme for that commission. It was for a period of 4 years or so. But then what happened was the evidence from Jalapuram was contributing to a global debate whether modern humans exited Africa with a microlithic stone tool technology after 70,000 years ago, or they exited Africa with a middle Paleolithic stone tool technology, which is referred to as Middle Stone Age in Africa and Middle Paleolithic outside of Africa. So this argument continues even today, but the overwhelming evidence now from different parts of the world, for example, Europe and Asia, indicate that microlithic expansion was a greater probability. And southern route was not that way feasible for migration, as we do not have well-documented sites with microlithic stone tool technology along the western coast of peninsular India, be it the coast of Pakistan, that is Makran, or the southern coast of Iran, or Kutch and Saurashtra. We do not have sites which are comparable to those sites found in Europe with a microlithic technology, and sites which are found in Africa with a microlithic technology. Interestingly, the persons who propounded, the scholars who propounded the southern dispersal route, have also not seriously taken into account the absence of coastal sites in Africa. But they still continue to argue for a coastal route because they assumed that the coastal environments provided consistently uniform aquatic food resources all along the dispersal route along the coast of Southern Asia. So this is one thing. And another thing that we argue against coastal routes is because of absence of evidence. And they say absence of evidence does not mean evidence of absence. But then we argue that whatever microlithic sites we know from the western part of coastal peninsula, they are much younger in age. They are of the order of 4,000, 6,000 years, not earlier than 10,000 years ago. So this is one thing. And then the commission had its only duration of for every 4 years, the commission, ceased to exist. And then a new commission with a new hot topic, emerges and so on. So we contributed to this debate based on documented archaeological evidence from India. So that is one thing. And we are now looking forward to finding sites which can fill the gaps. We are sure along the coastal tracts of peninsular India, quite unlikely, but inland sites are more likely to support the inland routes, dispersal routes for migration of Homo sapiens into South Asia. In order to debate and discuss on this issue, we had a British Academy funding into South Asia, out of Africa into South Asia. We had 3 meetings in UK, one in Cambridge and 2 in Oxford and so on. Whatever data we could generate during the course of that project, we compiled and submitted. And that is where the topic of debate has ceased to be in vogue today, or it is no more current, in other words. So this is that particular context where we raise this commission to discuss about dispersal patterns.
While you were at Carnatic University,
in
80s, Professor Korisettar was also there. And was already well known. And in fact, I also attended, I think, a couple of talks he gave in the Senate Hall, etc. How did he influence you professionally?
He led light to my career.
Okay.
Or he shed light to my career. He is my maternal uncle. After my graduation, I opted for physics minor and chemistry major, because in the 60s, chemistry was the hot subject. For job opportunities, everyone would advise us to take up major chemistry. You're likely to get jobs in industries and elsewhere and so on. That was one reason. But my BSc degree was not a very healthy degree to compete for admission at the postgraduate level in Carnatic University in the late 1960s. And at the same time, BSc chemistry was also helpful to pursue sugar technology course. Because Bellary area, there were lots of sugarcane cultivation as well as sugar factories, and some of the sugar factory owners were known to my father. So they had indicated that if I can wait for a year, they will get me an admission for sugar technology course. But somehow I was not a healthy guy those days. I used to fall sick very frequently. And then in 1970, Professor Settar returned from Cambridge after his second PhD. And as I mentioned, he was the only highly educated person in the entire family. Korisettar and S. Settar family, he was the only highly educated man, an enlightened person who could lead all of us, to a brighter light. So my father asked me to go and consult him. So I came to Harvard and met him. This is what I'm at the crossroads. Please let me know in which direction I should go. Then he said, apply for MA in anthropology, MA in social work, MA in library science. So I submitted my applications. I was waiting for the results, but in the meanwhile, he got an idea that since I am a science graduate, archaeology syllabus that was taught in Deccan College, Pune, 3 papers were science-based papers, and the remaining 5 papers were history and numismatics, art and architecture and things like that. He said, if you like, you can go to Pune for MA in archaeology. I said, I don't know anything about that subject, But he said, no, that is a great institution, many stalwarts, even including Paute and all are associated with Deccan College. And Professor H.D. Sankalia was a well-known father figure in modern Indian archaeology. And many other stalwarts were there. Pune was used to be called Oxford of the East those days. And so he asked me, I said, what about job opportunities? I can't assure you anything. It is difficult. Archaeology has not many openings. But anyway, you can try. So I said, okay. I was waiting for some feedback from local departments. Meanwhile, when he contacted his friends in Pune Deccan College, they said, send the boy immediately. So I had not seen a bigger city than Hubli those days. Neither English nor Hindi nor Marathi kind of a situation. I just boarded the bus in the night and reached Pune in the morning and went to the college, and difficulty in finding the location, and then managed to get into the department, met those people. When they heard that I am sent by so and so, they were extremely happy. Oh yeah, great man. Oh, something like that. Then they arranged for my admission. That's how I got into it. And then I knew of his achievements, academic attainments, and the kind of accolades he had received for his research work in Cambridge, because his PhD examiner had called him greatest authority on the subject he had submitted his PhD, and so on and so forth. So these were inspiring moments for me. I said, let me see what will happen. And so I went to Deccan College, and that led to my transformation into an archaeologist, and I continued to be in the field of archaeology since then. Sort of an inspiration, plus his works I was admiring, although I was very poor in understanding the subject he was dealing with. Yeah, but that was there. So that's how I came into this field of archaeology. Sometimes I feel more than motivators, you need mischievous and unprincipled people around you, and they help you to grow better than those people who really motivate you from their contributions. And this really happened in my life. I have no hesitation to say this, that I was surrounded by very mischievous and unprincipled people in academia as well as in administration, as long as I was in Karnataka University. You may like it or not. Yeah.
Of the seminal contributions by you,
yeah,
which one would you consider that has given the greatest intellectual challenge and joy?
There are two things. One is the discovery of volcanic ash, which really was a turning point, not only for my career, but for the Paleolithic archaeology of the Indian subcontinent itself. That is one thing. Even today, people talk about it. And then my own teachers, who were not very supportive of my continuing in the field of archaeology or whatever, they acknowledged that you made it a global problem. They acknowledged openly. And then, in fact, at one point of time, when there was so much of derogatory statements made about my institution in Deccan College, they used my discovery to save their face. And this really happened. Times of India made frontline, announcements of the importance of the discovery. Then the Week magazine called it the great discovery of the century, and such remarks. I mean, indirectly, I was credited for all that, but that was one thing. And secondly, understanding, two areas of our past. One is the earliest settlements in the Indian subcontinent, and another is the beginning of agricultural way of life in southern India. These two areas, which we took very sincerely in spite of all constraints, financial constraints, and because I was only a teacher in the university. We are not a research institute as such. So teaching 3 hours a day were a very exhausting experience. Yet vacations were very, very useful. Midterm vacation and summer vacation. I was not taking up this examination work as long as I was not compelled to take as part of my duties. Those 4 months in a year, I involved myself in field work, with meager research funding. Yet my friends from abroad were very, very generous. They used to get big grants, and the topics we were dealing with were very, very potential. And the reason was if in the till about 1919 end of the 20th century, you look into any of the global synthesis of prehistory, India used to have only 1 or 2 pages. But after the work we carried out and published, internationally, we began to get sufficient space in the global synthesis of prehistory of mankind. So understanding our own past and realizing the fact that archaeology teaches you better lessons than any of the darshanas, we think of today. It teaches you basic lessons in life. You don't have to go after money. You don't have to go after fame. You have to go after, illegal, what do you call claims that you can make out of your work and so on. This is what I feel, that the whole world is one family. That is the biggest lesson I have learned. We cannot discriminate, and we need not discriminate. And we share responsibilities of well-being of humanity. Because I see whenever I go to a big city like Delhi or Bangalore, I really get scared. I said, what is happening? What we are doing to this land? We are destroying the earth and exhausting all resources. Right from the beginning, we are living because we have identified resources in the nature and make proper use, but we are not making proper use. We are making abuse of the resources, and I think that is the fear I have developed. But otherwise, archaeology has taught me fundamental, principles of life. This is what I can say.
Professor Ravi Korisettar, excellent positive note on this. Let us end this interview.
Thank you.
And we thank you so much for your valuable time and wishing you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Whenever people ask me, appreciate the work I am doing. It's all hard work I'm doing. I'm doing basic work. I'm not doing any high intellectual kind of work, actually, not contributing original thoughts and ideas and so on. But I say, yes, you need a longer life, because if you find yourself useful to society, because the way in which I get response to my activities at the museum, I really feel thrilled. And I think that life is very, very short. And in this short span of life, what we have done so far is nothing. And our life is a moment in time. So yes, I remember this point always, that anything that we can do, I wish I were younger than what I am today. If I were sitting with you 10 years ago, I would have been very, very happy. So thanks a lot for thinking of me for this particular, interaction. I'm really excited, and your questions were appropriate, and I hope my answers are also appealing to you.
We learned a great deal of things from you.
It happens because only when we interact, we learn from each other. Yes, anyway.
Thank you so much.
Yes, wonderful. Wonderful sitting. Lovely. Bye-bye.